Now let's get to the namesake of the stream, now that it's been about 20 minutes. Those Epstein files. Holy shit, those Epstein files. Okay. Where the fuck do I even start with this? Okay. Hundreds of thousands of documents were released on, what was it, Thursday? I forget when exactly the deadline was, but on the day of the deadline, the Justice Department, after heavy redactions and redacting work, released the Epstein files, at least partially, to the public. Already they have broken the law. The deadline, as stipulated in the law passed by Congress and signed by President Trump, the law says that the Justice Department has to release all of the files. Whether or not they've made the appropriate redactions, they have to release all of them, not 10% of them like they did. They released 10% of the files, and about 90% of the contents of those 10% of the files were redacted. Oh, we'll get to that. We'll get to that, Gotron. So already just in releasing those files the way that they have broken the law. In fact, let me see if I can find some information substantiating that. Let's see. How many Epstein files released? Oh, this even this gets into the next thing that they did. The Justice Department was blatantly redacting Trump's name and image and like picture from the files, and in fact inserting pictures apparently that weren't in there. Some of them included pictures of Bill Clinton and Michael Jackson, which I don't know why you would feel the need to do that. Bill Clinton is plenty implicated by his connections to Epstein all on its own without you having to insert other photographs of him. You could have just let it rock. But just off of one search, I accidentally came across this, which is that after not satisfied with what they had redacted and released, the Justice Department took down some of these files. There were 16 files that were particularly incriminating regarding Donald Trump, which they are still out there. People got a hold of them, and it is known widely, irrefutably, that Donald Trump is implicated beyond implicated in the Epstein files. Like, even the 1% of the material that's unredacted shows that. So the Justice Department removed them. Just gone. Took them down. At least 16 files disappeared from the Justice Department's public webpage for documents related to Jeffrey Epstein, including a photograph showing President Donald Trump less than a day after they were posted, with no explanation from the government and no notice to the public. I'm sure we all know that the explanation is that they are covering up for Donald Trump, the CEO of pedophilia, now that the previous CEO, Jeffrey Epstein, is dead. The missing files, which were available Friday and no longer accessible by Saturday, included images of paintings depicting nude women and one showing a series of photographs along a credenza and in drawers. In that image, inside a drawer, among other photos, was a photo of Trump alongside Epstein, Melania Trump, and Epstein's longtime associate, Ghislaine Maxwell. Justice Department has said fucking nothing. Democrats on the House Oversight Committee pointed to the missing image featuring Trump photo in a post on X, or rather Twitter X, the everything app, writing, "What else is being covered up? We need transparency for the American public." The episode deepened concerns that had already emerged from the Justice Department's much anticipated document release. Tens of thousands of pages made public offered little new insight into Epstein's crimes or the prosecutorial decisions that allowed him to avoid serious federal charges for years, while omitting some of the most closely watched materials, including FBI interviews with victims and internal Justice Department memos on charging decisions. Basically, they covered up everything that we didn't already know, but because they are so incompetent, they couldn't even do that. And they went back and covered it up after the fact, after people already knew, after it was already out there. Um, I'm sure that this news outlet, this PBS report, oh, that's a long article, is like the others, not going to mention that this involves like at least a dozen breakages of the law. Like every single thing that the Justice Department has done in like dragging their feet here or redacting stuff that shouldn't be redacted is illegal, right? I think if I could even find this, there were some overt instructions that the Justice Department was giving that, like, yeah, basically redact information regarding the victims, but especially redact the information of politically connected individuals and like politicians who could be exposed by this. So, like, if somebody would get got by the Epstein files, cover it up. Let me see. I don't think we have that like actual instruction sheet, but you know, nonetheless, it is very evident that the Justice Department was directing them to uh, cover up for particularly Donald Trump, but any and all like politically powerful people, except for like, I guess, Bill Clinton, that were in the Epstein files. Hence the 119 pages of just blackout from Ghislaine Maxwell's uh, grand jury, I think. The grand jury in the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. They blacked out his page. Yeah, I'm sure they redacted that for no particular reason. There just wasn't anything interesting there, guys. That's why we had to waste all that printer ink. Where what was I looking for? Oh yeah, yeah. Everybody's seen those like completely black pages here. It was like I imagine the most likely thing that happened there was that it was so compromising that they just decided, look, there's too much incriminating information here to just redact. Just redact the entire uh just redact the entire thing, the entire 119 pages of this like grand jury testimony and stuff. Yeah, remember, you are happy, prices are down, there are no Epstein files, there is no Warren Bossing say type shit. Here, hold on, let me look. Let's see what Twitter's saying about the Epstein files right now. Oh, here's all the like MAGA influencers that are all of a sudden not posting about the Epstein files. Here's one of the fucking autism speaks types of people being like, what? I didn't know there was going to be actual crimes exposed here. Kash Patel saying that there are no Epstein files. Thomas Massey doing his thing. Oh, yeah, remember this? The Epstein files binders that just had nothing in them? Here's the original tweet with the MAGA influencers. Oh yeah, Ryan Grimm in the Intercept or Drop Site. I forget which one he was doing reporting for. But mentioning Epstein will get you nuked off of TikTok. Saying the word Epstein and having it written out in your transcript will get you nuked from TikTok. Uh, it is truly, it is everybody. Every fucking institution of power is implicated in this. Uh, News orgs, social media platforms, uh, tech companies, government officials, all of them. They are all implicated. That's why, I guess I can get to this now. Whenever there's been like news reporting, like even from PBS, you'll notice they never say that the Trump administration has broken the law. They will never say it. They will especially never say it in as many words. They'll say, I don't know about that. That seems like it could get you maybe into a little bit of trouble. We'll see what they decide to do next. Literally, like feigning ignorance and passivity. This is 100% like this. This would be fueling conspiracy theories if not for the fact that all the people who engage in conspiracism the most are the people who are running defense for Trump presently or are like shitting themselves because they don't know what to do. Thank you, Onion. Rare holographic Dershowitz. Compare the language of the Epstein Files Transparency Act. Oh, here's from Thomas Massey. Uh, A group of furry hackers have the power to do the best thing ever for humanity right now. Seriously, if there's any like furry hackers that have access to the DOJ, I know an extremely beneficial to humanity kind of thing you could do that involves compromising national security. Compromising the national security of America in this instance to release a shit ton of documents to the public would be in the interest of everybody. I encourage the furry hackers that leaked Project 2025 and all that to get on they shit again. Never remind me of the no flight logs leak. Oh yeah, that's right. Flight logs. That was a thing, huh? Um, Compare language of Epstein Files Transparency Act directing DOJ to provide internal communications regarding their decision versus DOJ letter to Congress asserting privilege to omit materials related to decisions because they weren't specified by law. They are flaunting the law. So there's the DOJ saying we don't have to justify ourselves to you. And here's the law saying you have to justify yourselves to us. This is not like a bill. This is not something that's been tabled. It's sitting in the House. Where this is law. It's been passed. It's the law. Ro Khanna and yeah, their ultimate move, lying. Ro Khanna and Thomas Massey came in clutch. Oh yeah, here's Pam Bondi getting hideously ratioed. Department of Justice previously stated we will bring charges against anyone involved in trafficking and exploitation of Epstein victims. We reaffirm this commitment and ask any victim to please come forward with any information pertaining to any individuals who engaged in illicit activity at their expense. Literally saying, like, yeah, victims, come tell us personally. You can trust us. And the community notes obliterating them, saying the Epstein files released by the DOJ are full of redactions and deleted pages. Photos of figures linked to Epstein, including images of Donald Trump that were removed from the official website to protect him, besides Bill Clinton and other politicians, they show selectively. Let's check out this New York Times article. Fuck you, New York Times. Anyways, we can see the title and byline here. Epstein file photos disappear from government website, including one of Trump. Total of 16 photos were taken down at some point on Saturday. One featured an open drawer containing other photos, including at least one of President Trump. I'd be surprised if apps like Google and stuff have actual ways to block the unblocked Epstein files from being seen again. I don't think they would. I don't think they can. Um, and I don't think they would think to, because this is like the reason that the media has been so pussyfooting about this is because all of them know that they're implicated. And a lot of them, though they're not like super smart to know how to do a cover up like this, they know that like probably the best thing they can do is nothing, because if they say anything, that's going to draw attention towards them. That's why a lot of people are real quiet right about now. A lot of news outlets are not mentioning how illegal this is, and are being careful not to say like, don't worry about it, right? The cover up is always worse than the crime. And considering that in this case, the crime is pedophilia, human trafficking, coercion, etc., this is one hell of a cover up. We have photos of Bill Gates and Chomsky too. Yeah, that's right. Someone should have told the people that had the black papers that. Yeah, Streisand effect. Look, billionaires and the government are too stupid to understand that the Streisand effect exists or how to work around it. This was, I think I predicted this when the Epstein files hadn't been released yet. One of my predictions was that they release them, but they're like redacted to shit, and it just makes the government look even worse, because they obviously just covered up for everybody that could have been implicated, right? This is like actually one of the worst possible outcomes, I think, for the government, that like even now with the Epstein files being out there, it would have just been better for them to release it all unredacted, with like just air out Trump's dirty laundry, let the whole world see all the documents proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that he is a pedophile who hung out with the king of pedophiles, and expose every single person in government, in like all these financial media institutions, whatever else. Like, that would be better for the people implicated, I think, in terms of their careers, than them covering it all up. Because with an overload of information like that, it's kind of like a challenge of, what are you going to do about it? And oftentimes, with such a giant scattershot of information, you can't get it all. But if everybody sees one singular cover up, then everybody knows like, oh, you're just covering that shit up, and now they're never going to live it down. Yeah, it's like, ironically, it's a Steve Bannon style flood the zone strategy. Ironic considering he's in the Epstein files. It would have been better for them to flood the zone by releasing all of the Epstein files unredacted, showing that Trump and Bannon and Chomsky and Clinton and fucking Prince Andrew and like all these media executives at these news companies and like all these banking people and political class pundits, consultants, journalists. It would be better to just air all that out than to cover it all up. For them, obviously it would be better for us, but it'd be better for them too. Because there's like a chance that some of them don't have their careers obliterated. Whereas this ensures that all of their careers will be obliterated. And it draws this affair out longer. It's like ripping off the Band-Aid, you know? Yeah, Chomsky haters vindicated right now. News is having a hard time covering this up. Yeah, I saw this from Politico. Here, check this out. Rule number 1, don't read the files. Rule number 2, understand what kind of documents you're reading. Rule number 3, sleazy behavior isn't criminal. Thank you, Politico. This definitely assuages the concerns of everybody that journalists and executives working at your newspaper are like not implicated or anything. What the fuck? Remember, guys, remember, sleazy behavior isn't criminal, just so you know that, apropos of nothing. We were just looking at the New York Times, but like Epstein's estate was in New York. He has connections to people at the New York Times. It's some crazy, crazy shit right now. I actually don't know where this goes from here. Oh yeah, here we go. Oh, this is the guy that was reporting on that consumer spending the other time. Yeah, they forgot to delete this one. This is on Epstein's private jet, I think. It appears these. Okay, here are the photos. Let's go to Midas Touch. Actually, Midas Touch has been doing some great reporting on this. A lot of the photos are gone. Midas Touch, I think, posted some of them. Let's see. Let's go to their media tab. Here is the open drawer with a bunch of photos. There's I think that's Bill Clinton actually. So, and there's Pope. I believe this is either Pope Benedict or I think John Paul. Maybe this is John Paul II, who was the Pope before Benedict. This is Mohammed bin Salman. So I've heard. Yeah, no one told them that you can't fucking delete anything from the internet. And look at that. We know who that is. That's Donald Trump. This photo has too much glare for me to really tell who it is. That's also Donald Trump. I think right here. This is the photo of Trump, Melania, Epstein. You can see a bit of his head there, and then Ghislaine Maxwell. This photo is now gone from the Epstein files release on the DOJ website. Here's a close-up showing, oh yeah, that is Donald Trump, and here's Donald Trump. There's two photos of Donald Trump in this photo. Very good. Let's look at some other documentation here. That's a news article. Where? Oh yeah, here's one. I'm assuming that Doe is in reference to the ubiquitous female pseudonym of Jane Doe. So this is talking about a young girl who was trafficked and recounting their experience. While these visits made Doe extremely uncomfortable, Epstein and Maxwell made her feel she could not refuse them. During this time, Epstein started to pay for voice lessons for Doe and insisted that Doe could not advance her career in any way without him. While Doe expressed hesitation about spending time with Epstein and Maxwell or acquiescing to their desires, Epstein and Maxwell would threaten Doe and scorn her for being ungrateful. During one of Doe's encounters with Epstein, he took her to Mar-a-Lago, where he introduced her to its owner, Donald J. Trump. Introducing 14-year-old, Doe to Donald J. Trump, Epstein elbowed Trump playfully, asking him, referring to Doe, "This is a good one, right?" Trump smiled and nodded in agreement. They both chuckled, and Doe felt uncomfortable, but at the time was too young to understand why. This, I think, was removed as well. If I follow this link to the Justice Department, no, apparently they didn't remove this one. It's still here. It's still here. I'm not going to read that. That is an actual description of child sexual abuse. I'm good. I'm good. The literal next paragraph describes the manner in which Epstein sexually abused this young girl. So there we go. That's one that they missed. I think they actually I don't think they can redact that one because of how many people have seen it. Although maybe they will anyway. Who knows? This is Epstein with somebody. And this is a big novelty check with Trump's signature. You can see here it says DJ Trump. From the Epstein files, let's read Midas Touch reporting. Jeffrey Epstein is photographed holding a large check bearing Donald Trump's signature with his arm around an unidentified female. The check appears to be the same one shown in Epstein's birthday book, where a longtime Mar-a-Lago member joked about Epstein selling a fully depreciated woman to Trump for $22,500. And you can see here the amount on the check is $22,500. But you got to understand, Trump didn't know he was a bad guy. The right actually isn't even going with that line. It actually might have been Melania in this picture. The right isn't even going with that line. They are trying and kind of failing to capture the cultural narrative and redirect it towards Bill Clinton with a couple photos of him. And the response from the left has been like, yeah, fucking so what? Get his ass too. Anyway, back to Donald Trump. You know, like there's too much here for the right to credibly say anything to the defense of Trump. So as we saw earlier, a lot of them, if I go up here, a lot of them are just not talking about it at all, right? They're just, because the right wing does understand how propaganda works within their sort of sealed off unit, right? They have completely captured the attention of their base with propaganda. So if they don't tell their base something, their base never hears it, because if it comes from the outside, they will necessarily distrust it. So all they have to do, or the strategy that they're employing, is simply not talking about it. Yeah, the right legitimately doesn't understand that the left doesn't fucking like Bill Clinton or any of the other like liberals that are implicated, because people on the left have principles, where on the right it is all like emotionally driven tribalism. You know, they think that every figure the left views positively is like our Donald Trump, right? Because they can't comprehend of people thinking and making decisions rationally. Like legitimately, they are projecting a lack of understanding of the world onto their political rivals and adversaries, the left. You know, the right wing doesn't understand much of anything. So they project that onto the left. Whenever the left has like a political party loosely affiliated with them, they assume, oh, so it's exactly like what we have. When no, a lot of leftists are perfectly happy to see Bill Clinton rot in hell with the rest of them, myself included. You know, he can rot in hell for fucking forever. Here's a tweet from Thomas Massey. Statement from Fox Digital. I want to find that Thomas Massey tweet here. Hold on. Let me search for Thomas Massey, because I think it was Fox News that report. Fox News oddly has been like a little bit more honest in their reporting than other news outlets. Here, hold on. Thomas Massey. Where was that? Let's go to his media tab. Where is the Fox Digital report? Is it this? Yeah, here we go. Okay. Consider these three attachments. Then he says, a future DOJ could convict the current AG and others because the Epstein Files Transparency Act is not like a congressional subpoena which expires at the end of each Congress. Yeah, it's a law. So public law, prohibited grounds for withholding. No record shall be withheld, delayed, or redacted on the basis of embarrassment, reputational harm, or political sensitivity, including to any government official, public figure, or foreign dignitary. So by covering up, you watch Stranger Things? No, I don't. I follow a few like pop culture media accounts which talk about Stranger Things sometimes. I do not watch Stranger Things. um, this is explicitly saying you are not legally allowed to redact the presence of any politician because it could be like politically embarrassing or exposing for them to get got by the Epstein files being released. Like, you can't do that. Then from Fox News, the Justice Department redacted the names and identifiers of victims. Fox News Digital has learned that the same redaction standards were applied to politically exposed individuals and government officials. Is why no one released it until this point? Yeah. Yeah, that's why they dragged their feet for so long, and even still, they waited till the last minute to actually redact anything. If you redact out a whole page, you're not actually supposed to black it out entirely. The redacting procedure is you redact the actual words. So it would look like, well, a barcode, right? Not a black page. But they didn't have time or institutional procedural knowledge. So they just said, fuck it. Here's Midas Touch. Could be all images either, I guess. No, it's a grand jury testimony. It's from a court case. It is mostly text, which makes it even more insane that they were like, yeah, we just need to black out the whole page. There may have been images, but if you've seen court documents, it's a wall of text, right? This was 119 pages of court documents from a court case. Ghislaine Maxwell's trial, I believe. Interns were told, if you don't block this down, I'm going to kick your butt. I think from what I heard, the DOJ was looking for loyalists to do this. Somebody find some information to that effect. But they were like, yeah, they basically, the DOJ pulled a bunch of people from a bunch of different administrative organs and specifically selected for Trump loyalists to redact Trump's name in the files, right? Because if they tried to, if they at least knew that if they tried to tell people who were otherwise not on board with, covering up for a pedophile, that you need to cover up for a pedophile, somebody would have gone to the press and just leaked it anyway, right? That's why the furry hacker leak didn't happen yet, is because they went out of their way to not let anybody touch the Epstein files who wasn't like fully devoted to Trump. Even a loyalist's face should fall with shame at this. Yeah, why do you think they're not talking about it? Here's Midas Touch reporting that 16 files have been removed. EFT. Oh yeah, here's another community note. Shout outs to Todd Blanche for getting bodied on social media. It seems like that's all that ever happens anymore. So the Department of Justice has said like, oh yeah, we're gonna release more materials in the next few weeks. And he was like, oh yeah, see, we're following the law, guys. And the community notes were like, no, the fuck you aren't. The law requires, like I said at the beginning of this, that the DOJ release all of these files by the deadline, which has already passed. Yeah, legitimately, I do think that even hardcore, like ideological fascists from the 20th century, if one of their leaders was caught in a scandal like this, they'd be able to like read the room and distance themselves from that leader and like jump off the sinking ship and like leak the documents and try to basically try to go with the like, yeah, I was against this from the start, because like obviously that like, oh yeah, this is disgusting behavior, we don't want it in our movement or anything like that, because they would actually believe in something. These people don't believe in anything, and that enables them to act like this, you know? Does that make sense? Like, for what it's worth, the Hitler Youth and the black shirt fascists of Italy, I don't think would have behaved like this if a comparable scandal were to expose a number of people in their government. I think they would have taken it more seriously than this. You know, even if they all knew that like a number of people were compromised beforehand, even with the same degree of like inside knowledge of who was compromised by uh an analogous version of the Epstein files, I think 20th century fascists would have reacted differently. I don't know. But this administration's response is to keep digging. So here's Kash Patel saying that oh yeah, here's them not being able to keep their lies straight. This is the DOJ saying, yeah, we'll investigate this criminal conspiracy. Teehee, you just need to, the victims, personally come forward with testimony to us where we will air it out in front of the whole nation. You know? And then here's Kash Patel says there is no like criminal conspiracy. They can't, there's so much discord in the government right now. Classic. Oh, this is a different thing from CBS. I want to take a look at Ro Khanna and Thomas Massey's legal action, I think, against AG Bondi. I think they're actually pursuing um what is it? Inherent contempt or something? Here, hold on. Let me look that up. Ro Khanna, inherent contempt, and Bondi. Yeah, here we go from the Hill. Ro Khanna and Thomas Massey threaten inherent contempt charges against Pam Bondi over partial release of the Epstein files. Notably, they have not said that they broke the law yet. Representatives Ro Khanna and Thomas Massey said Sunday that the House should hold Attorney General Pam Bondi in inherent contempt over the DOJ releasing an incomplete and heavily redacted tranche of files related to Jeffrey Epstein on Friday. Appearing together on CBS's Face the Nation, the lawmakers blasted Bondi and Deputy AG Todd Blanche 2 days after the DOJ release documents related to the late sex trafficker in accordance with the Epstein Files Transparency Act, with which Khanna and Massey co-sponsored. Not in accordance with, they only released part of it. Again, this is like the nature of captured and compromised news media. They're like, oh, see, haha, they did it in accordance with this law. No, they fucking didn't. They released like 10% of it. That's not like, oh, well, that 10% is, if you do something that like, if you are engaging in a criminal conspiracy, 10% of which doesn't involve doing illegal things. Like, if part of your criminal conspiracy is you meet up with the people you're conspiring with to get coffee, and that composes like 10% of your criminal operation, that doesn't make you 10% like not violating the law. It's not a like percentage thing. You violated the law or you fucking didn't. You know? Do you think a poor black person could get away with this excuse? Why do you ask questions that you already know the answer to? The answer is no, of course. Dave Chappelle did a whole bit on this. The quickest way, and I think most expeditious way to get justice for these victims is to bring inherent contempt against Pam Bondi, Massey told host Margaret Brennan. The Kentucky Republican added that he and Khanna are drafting a resolution to find Bondi in inherent contempt, while the California Democrat noted that such a measure would fine Bondi for every day that she's not releasing the documents. Legitimately, okay, I'm going to get on my lib shit for a second. A world in which liberalism still has life in it is a world where the Republican and Democratic parties are entirely defined by people like Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie. But you will note that there is only one of each of them in their respective political parties. Everybody else, it seems like, to varying degrees, is just allergic to doing shit, especially doing good shit. Also, I think the plan here is to basically remove Pam Bondi, if possible, from the AG position using these criminal like proceedings so that they can put somebody in uh, uh, the AG position that will release the Epstein files fully and with only the appropriate redactions as opposed to like, you know, covering up for everybody in politics, right? That I think is the plan. Uh, and legitimately, I hope that this goes through. Seriously. This whole thing, by the way, the only reason we have any of these files at all is because of Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie, right? Everybody else in Congress only got on board once it was like already guaranteed that like, oh yeah, if I vote against this, my career's over, right? Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie fucking moved heaven and earth to do this. Without them, these files would not have been released. I guarantee you. Because they like somebody has to initiate. Somebody has to be like, you know what? We are going to do X, Y, and Z. You are not going to stop me. You are not going to stop me. They're not going to stop me. Out there goes all the fucking arguments about like, oh well, we can't do anything because the minority is being obstructionist, or we're in the minority, depending on which party you're talking about. Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie are super minorities within their own parties, and Ro Khanna is part of the minority party in government right now. And they've gotten this far already. And they're not done. The DOJ told lawmakers in a letter obtained by The Hill on Friday it was releasing hundreds of thousands of documents in compliance with the legislation, which Congress passed with near unanimous support and was signed into law by President Trump last month. Still not in accordance with still not in compliance with the legislation because they only released part of it. Many of the documents were redacted, while over a dozen files, including a photo of Trump, disappeared from the DOJ's public database on Saturday. The department also released a 119-page transcript. So there we go, Caleb. It was a transcript. It wasn't pictures. It was a lot of fucking words from grand jury deliberations in the 2021 case of Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's accomplice. Khanna, though, criticized the DOJ on Sunday for heavily redacting the names of non-victims in the transcript. According to the social platform, announcing on the social platform, that he and Massie are bringing inherent contempt charges against Bondi. The populist lawmaker said the two are taking action to fight a corrupt system. Blanche, the president's former personal attorney. Oh, yeah. Relevant note, by the way, the deputy attorney general was also Trump's personal attorney. Trump appointed his lawyer to be head of like deputy of the Department of Justice. And I think Pam Bondi gave, it was either Trump or Epstein. I think Pam Bondi was the one who actually gave Epstein a sweetheart deal in Florida. So she was appointed to AG. Blanche told Fox News earlier this week that the DOJ will release several hundred thousand more documents in the coming weeks. They are really dragging their feet with this. He also told NBC News on Sunday that the removal of the aforementioned photos of the DOJ's database has nothing to do with Trump, but instead came after victims of Epstein Maxwell expressed concerns about their faces being publicized. I promise you, us removing material that explicitly and only, by the way, we saw the photo, incriminates Trump, I assure you, has everything to do with the victims, literally victim blaming, and nothing to do with Donald Trump, the guy who's implicated. I don't think there were any victims present in this photo, right? And if there are, we can't see their faces. I can't see who that is. I can't see who these people are because their faces are obscured. That's the Pope. That there's too much glare. That's Mohammed bin Salman. That's Jeffrey Epstein. That's Epstein again. That's Bill Clinton. That's Donald Trump. I guess that maybe these people's faces aren't redacted. That's Donald Trump. That's Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell. Everybody whose face you can see and like identify who they are is like implicated and not a victim. These women, I have no doubt, are victims, but they're not public figures. You can't really identify who they are, what their faces look like. Right? They, like, see, rich people are the victims because the kids are, uh, kids was auto-corrected in there. Because they're being affected by it. Oh, true. Yeah, they're victims of Epstein because they engaged in CSA, child sexual abuse, and now they have to face consequences, which makes them victims. Actually, many such cases. I hope this goes through. This legitimately, this could be a case of this could be another instance where nobody in Congress really wants to do this, but more than they don't want to do this, they do want to keep their careers. So they recognize like we have to get on board with this measure, and like I don't know, and Kana and Massey actually get some sort of criminal proceedings started with respect to Pam Bondi. Which, of course, I'm mentioning Pam Bondi specifically. You guys remember, everybody's implicated by this. Everybody in the government, in the fucking executive branch particularly, is complicit in this cover-up. It's not just Pam Bondi. It's Todd Blanche. It's all the fucking people that worked for them redacting these files. Pam Bondi wasn't sitting down doing that shit herself. They told a bunch of other people from other departments and other, like, parts of the executive branch, here's the Epstein files, you're getting assigned to this, redact all instances of Donald Trump. Doing the painful thing where they fight back, then they give up halfway, like Democrats with the shutdown. Yeah, this is an instance where like this is such a political nuke that I feel like it's going to be defined by a couple people wanting to actually make progress, and then everybody else realizing halfway through that fighting back would be toxic for their own careers, so they like go along to get along. This is a rare instance of going along to get along, potentially working in our favor for once. And by our favor, I mean like a regular ass people. Oh, look at this. Newsweek, 53 minutes ago. This article was literally published after I started the stream. Republicans on board with Pam Bondi impeachment, Ro Khanna. Representative Ro Khanna, a California Dem, said on Monday that some Republicans are on board with potentially impeaching Attorney General Pam Bondi over the DOJ's failure to release all of its files related to the late financier and convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein by the congressionally mandated deadline. You can tell Newsweek is captured too by the way they talk about this. By like not immediately mentioning that like, oh yeah, this broke the law in a million different ways. It's a very easy identifier for like, okay, this is roughly where this kind of network of power extends to. We're very Foucault-pilled right now. I bet so many rich people are losing sleep over this. Oh yeah, and I'm eating it up personally. pointing out that Representative Thomas Massey, a Kentucky Republican, would be leading the effort if it moves forward. Khan said during an interview with Morning Joe on MS Now that there are a few Republicans who are on board with it. However, he noted that this would not be the first step to pressure Bondi and the DOJ, highlighting that they'd first move forward with pushing to hold her in contempt of Congress. Yeah, Dems have threatened impeachment, but it's like kind of toothless. It seems like what the news is doing here, I can already see this taking shape. A lot of these will mention Pam Bondi because, Ro Khanna and Thomas Massey are drafting articles of impeachment or like pursuing inherent contempt. A lot of them are going to try to set up Pam Bondi as like the fall gal. Basically, she'll take the fall and they'll try to still proceed with the cover up. I don't know if that's going to exactly work. We're talking about the people that let a takeover attempt go. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, these institutions are all fascist. You understand this. All of these institutions, all of these news outlets are ideologically fascist. That is the bend of their ownership. And so anything that they publish has to be within that acceptable range. Right? The particular flavor of fascism being that of a bureaucratic digital surveillance state and like the network state type shit. Um, every single one of these news outlets has that bias because they're all owned by the same people who all know each other, and all of them have been to, Epstein's Island and shit like that. Which I'm sure we're going to find out maybe at some point, but not right now because the DOJ is covering up for them. Talking a lot resulted in me yawning and such. It seems like they really want to pursue this too. Thomas Massey on, thank you, more for the union. Very cool. Thomas Massey on the Epstein bill. How will we know if this bill has been successful? We will know when there are rich men in handcuffs being perp walked to the jail. Basically announcing his intent. Like, I want to believe he's not virtue signaling here because his actions, in concert with Ro Khanna, his actions indicate that he wouldn't just be virtue signaling. They're not like just gonna stop. I hope at least they don't just stop with Pam Bondi, right? Like they do intend to expose a lot of this shit. This gives me an idea. What does Truth Social look like right now? What is going on here? He's president. Something. I want to see if like he is he posts Jesus Christ, Trump posts a lot. I'm looking at Truth Social. You guys remember when Rob Rayner died? Trump like crashed out, and um, it resulted in like his own base reacting negatively directly to him, which is a very rare occurrence. I'm trying to find something in relation to the Epstein files, but it's entirely possible he just didn't post about them. Unlikely, but possible. I'm currently in posts that are like 2 days old and I haven't seen anything yet. if I don't find anything, it seems like the strategy that Trump and a lot of Republicans, like the media mouthpieces of the Republican Party, are going with is just not to talk about Epstein at all. Trump says I'm not answering questions. Did he actually say that? Or please find me the clip. If that's like he actually, if that's a thing he actually said, can you find me that? Because I would want to look at it. Yeah, no, I mean, 3 days ago, 4 days ago, and he hasn't. No mention of the Epstein files. You know what? What if I search? You guys probably heard that noise, that error noise from my PC. Let me see if I can. That's me typing the word Epstein into the search bar. Trump has not posted anything in. How far does this go back? 5 days ago? So I'm currently in 5 days ago. A control F search for Epstein yields nothing. Their strategy really is just to not say anything about it. You see as well, some posts like this. This has been a this has been one possible response from the right wing, which is Epstein was well connected and had so much influence. That doesn't come without a network of wealthy people. While not everyone who knew Jeffrey participated in his perversions, proper investigation will reveal those who did are the perps, right? So the most that they can do is say like, well, everyone in Jeffrey's child sex trafficking network wasn't, criminally implicated, which while technically true, potentially, like if they ordered food and the takeout driver shows up, like that person's not implicated. Anybody who's been to Jeffrey Epstein's estate is criminally implicated by virtue of not immediately like trying to expose that shit, you know? If you become aware of the presence of a criminal conspiracy and you maintain that social contact with the one of the conspirators, you're now complicit in the criminal conspiracy. Right? Like if you just to use this as an example, if you befriend a child sex trafficker, being aware of his child sex trafficking as a mode of power broking, that makes you complicit in the child sex trafficking. Reporting from Drop Site about, oh yeah, Epstein's presence in politics has been felt in a lot of places for a long time. This relates to the Iran-Contra scandals. Oh, the government was like getting here for a while. This is just kind of like a heat death implosion type of thing. A lot of this was already present, you know? It's funnily enough, it's kind of like the political momentum of fascists. Yeah, we're witnessing like the political momentum of fascists running into the wall of like institutions that are so obstinate to that kind of change. But yes, this year it has been like particularly fast. You know, accelerationists are eating good. From the Epstein files. Uh, Epstein threatened to burn someone's house down if they revealed he stole photos of young girls and sold them and had other photos taken. Click alt text if you can't read here. Okay. Subject's name and aliases. Jeffrey Epstein. Okay. This is a criminal complaint form, I'm assuming. Unpublished. So, yeah, they've protected the identity of the complainant. Let's check the alt text. Facts of complainant. Complainant stated that she is a professional artist and took pictures of her sisters for her own personal artwork. Epstein stole the photos and negatives and is believed to have sold the pictures to potential buyers. This is back when you had to, in order to take a photo, you had to first take it as a negative and then get it developed. And then the photo actually comes out. Epstein at one time requested Redacted to take pictures of young girls at swimming pools. Epstein is now threatening Redacted that if she tells anyone about the photos, he will burn her house down. Gotta be Maria Farmer. People are speculating that it's Maria Farmer. It might be, but the identity of this person is protected. Maybe it is. I don't know. But, you know, yet another example. Very good. Oh, yeah, this was from the actual day of the release. They missed this. They missed this on the first release. They also missed a lot of victim information. I'm not going to linger on this for too long, but those were victims. They left a lot of victim info unredacted, and a lot of Trump's presence in there went redacted. This is, you know, yes, that is helpful. Thank you. Thank you. Oh boy. New statement from Epstein survivors. Let's check this out. This is from just today, earlier today. Survivors of abuse by Epstein and Maxwell call out Department of Justice Department, failure to comply with transparency law. Demand oversight and accountability from Congress. Statements from survivors. The Epstein Files Transparency Act imposed a December 19th, 2025 deadline for the United States Department of Justice to release its full records of the investigation of Jeffrey Epstein and his accomplices and enablers, with specific narrow exceptions such as survivor identities. This law, enacted by a nearly unanimous vote in the House and unanimously in the Senate, and signed by the President, was clear. It afforded no permission for delayed disclosure. Instead, the public received a fraction of the files, and what we received was riddled with abnormal and extreme redactions with no explanation. At the same time, numerous victim identities were left unredacted, causing real and immediate harm. No financial documents were released. Grand jury minutes, though approved by a federal judge for release, were fully blacked out. Not the scattered redactions that might be expected to protect victim names, but 119 full pages blacked out. We are told that there are hundreds of thousands of pages of documents still unreleased. These are clear-cut violations of an unambiguous law, already a much better encapsulation of the issue than any news outlet would be willing to provide. Moreover, the partial release was done in a manner that made it difficult or impossible for survivors to find materials that would be most relevant to our search for accountability. There's been no guidance for survivors on how to locate materials pertaining to our own cases, nor have we been provided with copies of our own files despite repeated requests. There's been no communications with survivors or our representatives as to what was withheld from release, or why hundreds of thousands of documents have not been disclosed by the legal deadline, or how DOJ will ensure that no more victim names are wrongly disclosed. While clear communication would not change the fact that a law was broken, its absence suggests an ongoing intent to keep survivors and the public in the dark as much as possible and as long as possible. Does it continue? It does. It is alarming that the U.S. Department of Justice, the very agency tasked with upholding the law, has violated the law, both by withholding massive quantities of documents and by failing to redact survivor identities. As women who survived the crimes perpetrated by Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, we call upon DOJ to explain to the public why they have missed a legal deadline, and to explain to us or our representatives how we can privately obtain copies of all documents in DOJ possession that identify us by name. For those documents that are publicly released, careful, lawful redaction is essential. Transparency must focus on institutional failures, enablers, financial records, and government conduct, not on further endangering survivors. Moreover, we call upon Congress to stand up for the rule of law. We urge immediate congressional oversight, including hearings, formal demands for compliance, and legal action to ensure the Department of Justice fulfills its legal obligations. This is not a partisan issue. For once, that's actually true. Just as the Epstein Files Transparency Act was supported across party lines, we now ask elected officials from both parties to take decisive action to enforce the law, compel full compliance, and ensure meaningful transparency without further delay. Survivors deserve truth. Survivors whose identities are private deserve protection. The public deserves accountability, and the law must be enforced. Oh, here's Maria Farmer right there. A couple of Jane Does, a bunch of other names. This is not a partisan issue. Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie are from different parties. And many of the politicians who didn't want these files to be released or were really quiet about it were also from both parties. In this respect, I suppose you could say it's like a partisan issue of being pro-pedophile versus not being pro-pedophile. Dems, there's no excuse for them to not do anything now. The pressure is legitimately good on the survivors for issuing such a statement that makes demands of Congress specifically. They gave their asses instructions on what to do. You need to do X, Y, and Z. You need to compel the release of these files. You need to have hearings. You need to hold the Justice Department in criminal contempt of Congress. You need to start prosecuting people. Yeah, it's genuinely impossible to imagine how frustrated these survivors are. Women that endured sexual abuse as children and grow up only to see Congress and the Justice Department drag their feet on releasing these files regarding the criminal conspiracy that specifically victimized them. And by several layers of proxy, have victimized the entire rest of the world. This is the capital class incarnate that's implicated in this conspiracy. The wealthy, the powerful, the people who own and control the majority of society, that is the capital class, the people who control all the resources and shit. You know? Yeah, they're behaving. The people who are implicated are actually making it pretty easy to identify who they are because they're all behaving pretty uniformly like cornered animals. The news outlets that are saying, remember, just being friends with Jeffrey Epstein wasn't illegal. All the news outlets saying shit like that, refusing to say that the administration broke the law. The administration itself, everybody in the government, all the MAGA influencers trying not to talk about it. They're all cornered animals. They know that, like, there's not that many ways that they get out of this one. I don't know, like, surely Donnie Boy won't wriggle his way out of this one, and then he does anyway, nevertheless, or something like that. But I actually don't see a way for the people implicated in this sex trafficking ring to quote unquote get out of this, in the sense that this is going to haunt them like a specter for the rest of their lives. This is a genie that has come out of the bottle, and I know Congress wants to. I know that, like, so many politicians and journalists and business people, shareholders, and like tech bros and whatever want to put this genie back in the bottle, but that's not how this works. The more they try to cover it up, the harder the Streisand effect takes hold. Now, the scandal is not just the sex trafficking and power broking ring, it's the attempted cover up once they were compelled to release some information about it, you know? I could spend the whole stream talking about this, but, like, Jesus. This literally sounds like it's from a deep state movie script. You couldn't write this. Legitimately, I don't think you could write this. The files that they released were literally in sequence. Here, let me go to the Justice Department. Let me go to the Justice Department website to see. Where there was like a list of, oh, they've changed it now. They initially presented all the files that they released in sequence, like numbered files. And there was like one of the files they removed, it was that picture. It was number 468. Yeah, they you could, if you tried to write that the government would heavily redact these like very secret criminal conspiracy files to protect like very wealthy and powerful people, release them in numbered sequence, and then blatantly remove them in a way that like you could just see which numbers weren't there anymore, you'd get laughed out of Hollywood. They'd be like, nobody would be like, that is unrealistically stupid. Bolshevik anarchists and from the US, bro, what? It's true. We do exist. Anarchists in America. Welcome to chat, by the way. Talking about the Epstein files. Yeah, this was number 468. This was the file. I wonder, does this provide the link? Oh, here's the the data set as it would look if you like found it on the website. I remember looking at this. I think they changed it now. Apparently 167 vanished too. So the way that it worked was they literally just removed this. So you see 465, 466, 467, and then 469. If 468 is just gone. I guess now they've like changed the naming conventions so that like it's harder to tell which ones have been removed. This person's saying that the same thing, like number 167 was also removed, presumably because it included a picture of Trump. Oh, here's a number of photos. Well, you look at that. That there's Donald Trump. He sure is in all of these photographs. Uh, 2 years in a row of something crazy happening in December. Yeah, here we go. 468 now missing. I actually like to tell you the truth. I actually don't like. I don't know where this goes from here. But one thing I do know is that everybody's going to keep talking about the Epstein files. Like, this is going to remain a fixture of public discourse until the death of everybody in the Epstein files, and potentially even longer than that, right? Again, the cover up is always worse than the crime. And the crime in this case was was child sex trafficking and sexual abuse and coercion. And so the cover up is going to be absolutely massive in terms of like how bad it is. Yeah, they're calling it the most embarrassing presidency America has ever seen. Oh, check this out too. From Midas Touch, I found this earlier. The DOJ appears to have redacted Donald Trump's name from the allegations made in this exhibit in the files. Trump's name was in the original release. Now it's blacked out. See for yourself. We have confidential. Several girls at any one time. She confided in me about her casual friendship with Donald. Mr. Trump definitely seemed to have a thing for her, and she told me how she kept going on about how he liked her. This is making me uncomfortable. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to read that, but you can see there's a lot of mentions of Trump's name. Yes, I did see this meme. This is basically like what's happening spiritually. So this is redacted and this is redacted because of sensitive like victim information. Then the DOJ goes back. Let's see this part here. A couple months later, after he constantly stalked me around Edinburgh, referring to Jeffrey Epstein, I moved to New York to get as far away from him as possible and to start a new life. And they redacted the part about Jeffrey Epstein stalking her. Oh, look at that. They black out another one of Jeffrey Epstein's associates. I moved from Edinburgh to New York in September 2006, where shortly after I was introduced to Jeffrey Epstein by Natalie. Here, you can see the same thing, and they black out Natalie's name. This administration is just pro-pedophile. Jen, that's another person. I think this was I think I remember seeing somebody named Jen on the list of like survivors. That might be a survivor. Yeah, you can figure out that it's not a victim based on the context of the sentence. Oh, here we go. I know she had sexual relations with Trump at Jeffrey's New York mansion. Trump's name is now blacked out. Very good. On regular occasions, I once met Jen for coffee just before she was going to meet Trump and Epstein together at his mansion. Jen's name is blacked out. Trump's name is blacked out. What's this? More redactions down here. I also have other photos of the Epstein girls and I on that island. A couple pictures of me with Sergey Brin and uh his then finance, or does that mean fiance? And Wojcicki. Who is Anne Wojcicki? American entrepreneur, founder of 23andMe. And her name is now blacked out. I met the pair when they visited the island for the day as Sergey wanted to try out his new kite surfing equipment. Excuse me. Only just started kite surfing, very eager to try his new equipment with us girls. At this point, why not just black out every name? Yeah, honestly, like everybody's name except for Epstein because he's dead. It is so blatant. Honestly, this is kind of the worst way that they could have handled the Epstein files, is just full on like, okay, we're just going to redact everybody's name who was a perpetrator of sexual abuse and like implicated in this criminal conspiracy. Like, just cover it all up. Also, she's implicated. Sister to Susan Wojcicki. Interesting. Okay. I'm sure Susan was probably implicated as well, but she's dead now. So, El Bozo. How the fuck do I end that off? How the fuck do I like? What do I even say? Like, I guess it's a cover up so stupid that you couldn't write it even as part of a cartoon. Or maybe that's the only context in which you could write something this stupid. And the government has basically guaranteed that they are never going to live this down. Maybe stare at the camera ominously? Yeah, sure. Play the horror sting or something. I don't know. The government's never going to live this down because of how they handled it. And this is going to serve as like another splitting point for the right wing. The MAGA movement is like beyond dead. You know, Trump is so implicated, even in the limited material that they did release, you know? And the fact that they had to go back and like re-redact this shit, it, even if no criminal charges come of this, which I think there actually might be some criminal charges. There might very well be some criminal charges that come out of this because Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie, God fucking bless, are willing to actually do something in this blighted hellscape of institutional stagnation. Yeah, this, from a pure, even just from a political perspective, this is way too fucking big for anybody to let go. Anybody who attaches themselves to the wrong side of this, their political career is going down in flames. And I think that includes Donald Trump. It's going to be really painful for the right wing base, but I think like we've seen his star is waning in large part because of this. And any Republicans that hook themselves to this are going to go down with the ship. It's also worth mentioning that one of their stalling tactics is that Mike Johnson sent the House home early. The House is not in session right now. They can't do anything because Mike Johnson is the boss. Like, he sets the schedule and some stuff since he's the Speaker of the House. And he said, all right, that's it. You're going on vacation so that you can't like do anything regarding these hearings, regarding these criminal proceedings, this contempt or whatever. Can't do any of that because he knew how bad it would be. A lot of Republicans probably knew. A lot of them are implicated. They're old as fuck. If no one gets charged, there might be straight up violence. Not joking. Maybe. Maybe. I don't want to speculate too much, and I don't want to go on any like adventurous sort of modes of thought. But like, again, this is too big to let go. And everybody's going to see who's like, I don't mean helpful violence. No, I know. I know what kind of violence that implies. I know exactly what kind of violence that you're talking about, like attempts on political officials' lives, uh, mass civil unrest, incidents of like mentally ill people committing terror attacks, and that sort of thing. I feel like this is going to contribute a lot to the American century of humiliation. This the way that the Trump administration has handled these files, the Epstein files. Y'all hear that? That's the train. Yeah, it comes by a few times a day. That was a really long one. What is going on? Yeah, choo choo. Indeed. Oh, it's real close now. Of course, it's America, so we don't have passenger rail. It's a freight train. Um, that comes by. There's still a lot of like rail infrastructure for freight and shipping, uh, but not for people, not for like transit. Sounds like they're having fun with the horn. They are. I look when I was in college. When I went to college, I also lived near a railroad. And the train came by enough times that I knew that the train conductor liked to have fun with the horn. Like they would see people and they'd just do a brief little toot toot on the horn as they came by. And I assume that like a lot of train conductors are like that, especially because if you know what happened during the lead up to the railroad strikes of 2022 that were unfortunately never to be, you would know that a lot of these people don't get to go home and see their families very often. So, they have to make what kind of small moments of joy they can while they're on the job. And the pay, it's not like an issue of the pay being really bad. The pay is like okay, but they're on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days out of the year. At least at like before that set of negotiations happened. They have slightly more favorable working conditions now, but it was truly like it could not get much worse in terms of working conditions. Even now, I don't think things are that much better. They have less than 10 paid days of like time off, like the train conductors and railroad workers. Poor bastards. Anyways, yeah, again, to wrap up the like Epstein segment or whatever, that is just too big to let go. And I hope that Ro Khanna and Thomas Massey take this as far, literally as far as they want to take it. Um, because this like massive child sex trafficking conspiracy implicates so many people and is so ubiquitously known now not just that the conspiracy existed and was like extremely pervasive, but that there's now a cover up that's extremely like just as pervasive and has compromised a lot of institutions. They need to like they need to hammer away on this, and like figuratively speaking, heads need to roll. People need to be perp walked. Like, you know, like Thomas Massey said, there need to be people arrested, tried, and convicted for this shit. You know? But either way, this is not going to go away. At the segment, if that's a segment. Hmm. Thanks for watching, and support the channel if you would be so kind.